the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization putting out a report that says humanity can eat more than enough fish without plundering the seas. Manuel Barange is Assistant Director General and Director of Fisheries and Aquaculture, at the FAO. Thank you for joining us from the UN conference in Nice.
Thank you for having me.
Your report, which you put out Wednesday, shows that already something like 77% of the fish consumed globally still come from sustainable sources, and you have alternatives to super trawlers.
Yes, the report that we released shows both positives and negatives. On average, 35% of fish stocks around the world are overfished. This is a global average, and there are places where fisheries is very sustainable. And some places, 85–90% of the fish stocks are sustainably exploited. And in other regions, only under less than 50% of the stocks are sustainably fished. So we know what works. We know that management works. And what we need is political commitment, and we need data, information, institutions, and partnerships and financing to make fisheries completely sustainable in all parts of the world. We rely on fish for our food. We rely for livelihoods. 600 million people depend on fisheries and aquaculture for their livelihoods. And we need to protect them as well as we protect the natural environment.
Protect them. You heard our correspondent talking about the concept of ocean cops. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the ocean is actually very regulated. Fisheries is actually very regulated in the ocean. We have, of course, countries are responsible for managing the resources in their waters, in the exclusive economic zones. Outside the economic zones, we have about 23 regional fisheries management organizations, and we need more of those. We need more and more commitment. And those organizations, when they are established, they tend to have scientific structures, they tend to have compliance mechanisms and observing mechanisms and inspection mechanisms to make sure fish that is caught in the high seas is regulated and it is sustainable. But many areas of the world do not have these regional arrangements. And we think that this biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction agreement will actually encourage more countries to establish these regional structures, because that's the best way of managing resources in different parts of the world.
And can this put an end to super trawlers?
Well, FAO establishes whether a fisheries is sustainable or not. The way that fisheries operates, what sort of gear they use, what sort of boats operate, that of course is up to the countries themselves. We don't have an authority over that. There are trawlers that are doing a very good job in providing food and livelihoods in a very sustainable manner, and there are others that do not. And we do not blame particular target or particular ways of operating, rather specific places where certain fisheries are not sustainable, and perhaps the way of fishing is also not sustainable.
Manuel Barange, you're a marine biologist by training. When do you reach a point of no return when it comes to a fish species?
Well, yes, I'm a marine biologist, and I was interested when I was seeing the clip of that young girl on the ship visiting the Norwegian ship and saying that, you know, that countries need to listen. And I was a child as well, and feeling exactly like her. And I think that what is very important in these conferences is to bring the young generations forward, to make them interested in the sea, to see what works and what doesn't work. And they will become scientists, and they will become politicians, and they will become managers of the sea. I have not seen points of no return in the work that we do. What I see is points that need to change. And we are following trends, we are following patterns, and we are working with countries and institutions and scientists to make sure that we pick up the signals and we act when the signals tell us to act. So I'm not about looking at no returns. I'm actually positive. I think that there are many things that are working out there, many fisheries that are sustainable. We, for example, mentioned in the report that 83% of all the tuna stocks around the world are sustainably fished. And this is a very good figure, something that has changed over the last 2 decades. And I think that we need to start sending positive signals and positive solutions to a world that needs those positive solutions and positive messages.
Because we had Monday in the France 24 debate, we had a panelist, a marine biologist, who after the show said, yeah, tuna can make a comeback, but for instance, cod in the North Atlantic cannot. That was his view.
Well, no, that's not entirely correct. There are many different stocks of cod. There are some cod stocks that are not doing very well. Some of them because of climate change, because of warming of the ocean, particularly the more southerner stocks around, so still northern Europe, but in the southern part of northern Europe. Some of the cod stocks in the Barents Sea, Norway, are doing very well. So this is very important. When FAO analyzes 2,570 marine fish stocks, it's because there's a lot of variety out there. There's some stocks that are doing well, even from the same species. In some areas are doing well, in some others are not doing well. We need to understand the context of every fisheries, because only by understanding the context, we can turn sustainability failures into sustainability successes.
And when you take a look at the warming temperatures, is that the biggest threat, or is it the overfishing?
No, climate change is possibly the biggest threat, much more than overfishing. I see climate change as the biggest disruptor, because when you see what we see, climate change is causing three things. It's causing species to move away from the natural habitat to different areas. It is changing their productivity, and in some cases, it's changing the seasonality of what they do, whether they reproduce. And those three phenomena are creating changes in the way that we manage the stocks, the way that we fish the stocks, and the way that we consume the fish that we catch. So I think that is very important to start developing fisheries management measures that are adaptive to climate change, that to consider the changing environment. And if we don't do that, then we will have significant problems.
Are you sensing progress? Because I ask the question because countries are happy to sign on the dotted line, but environmentalists say, they give the example of France, where you have protected areas for the fish, but they're not very well enforced.
Well, I think marine protected areas are one management measure that countries can implement. There are others as well. And I think that countries need to decide what works for them, and they certainly need to stand by those decisions. Whether it doesn't matter so much what measure they take, whether it is a protected area and no-take zone, or whether it's protected for certain times of the year, or for certain species, or for certain habitats. The important thing is to take management seriously. What we can't do is, as you say, sign dotted lines without any meaningful action behind.
One final question for you, Manuel Barange. What constitutes sustainable fishing? Just explain that to us.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, this is a very technical term. In the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, in the Sustainable Development Goals, there is a definition for it, which is keep populations at the level that they can produce the maximum yield. That means if we use a banking equivalent, to keep the deposits in the bank to a level where you only extract the interest that the bank is giving you. As long as you only extract the interest, then that is sustainable. And when we say that 35.5% of fish stocks are not sustainable, it means that we are extracting more than that interest. As long as we keep the capital, as long as we keep that biomass in the ocean to a certain level, and we do not extract more than the interest, we will keep those populations sustainable.
Manuel Barange of the Food and Agriculture Organization, so many thanks for being with us from the UN Ocean Conference in Nice.
Thank you very much.